All right. I think we're live now. So, see, we got some people waiting in here. Let me get all set up here. We'll get going. While we're waiting on everybody to join, hey, there we go. There's somebody already. Ed Got Base is just hanging out, waiting for you to start. Well, I'm here now. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining early and hanging out and waiting for me. Let's get the disclaimers out of the way we normally do. Again, this is a weekly live broadcast, generally every week, most weeks, not every week. Sometimes things get in the way. I can't make it. Seems like that's been happening a little bit more frequently here lately, but it'll smooth out. Where was I going with that? I forgot completely. So I don't have a topic planned out. This is just an opportunity for you guys to ask me questions, to interact with me, for me to interact with you. I do my best to answer all of the comments that come in on the live chat itself. So if you're watching this after the broadcast has been, leave a comment below. Hopefully I'll get to it. I've not been very good about answering comments lately. I've been super busy, but I'm going to do my best to get back to it. The only thing I ask from you guys tonight, you can pretty much ask me anything you want. Just be polite, be family friendly. We don't want to have to kick you out of here. Don't spam us with comments. When you ask a question, just give me time. If you see that I've skipped it and I'm answering somebody else's question 2 or 3 down from where yours was, then yeah, go ahead and feel free to go ahead and re-ask it at that point. But don't just ask us over and over and over again. Nobody likes that. So, all right. Yep, you're right, Ed. Life does happen sometimes, and I got a full-time job. I got a family. There's just sometimes things get in the way of being able to make a live broadcast. So hopefully you guys understand that. Good evening, Rhonda. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. You say hello. Hope you and the family are doing well. You're saying, how are you and the family doing? I guess I need to get my glasses cleaned or something. We're doing well. Thank you very much. Been super busy trying to get my flooring done, but that's all right. That's just temporary. It'll get done eventually. So, Owen, good to see you. Says, hi, how you doing? I'm doing well. Thank you. Hopefully you are too. I know we had some people in here early. We already had people liking the video before we even started the live broadcast tonight. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right. Carrie says, we got a question here. Question on quail. I bought 4 hens and a roux. I got 1 egg for 3 days and then nothing. What could cause her to stop laying? And why would you think the other 3 have never have laid? I've had them 3 weeks. Okay. There's a couple of different reasons why that could be. You bought 4 hens and a rooster. You got 1 egg for 3 days and then nothing. So my guess is that it's a combination of things. First of all, whenever you move birds, it stresses them out. They do tend to stop laying for about a week or 2. Now you're 3 weeks in, so I would expect them to start laying just about any time now. But I also don't know exactly where you live. And right now it's, depending on where you live, I'm assuming North America, your daylight probably isn't quite 14 hours a day. And in order for quail to lay on a regular basis, they need to have about 14 hours a day of light. They're going to start laying pretty sporadically whenever the days start getting a little bit longer until they get to that 14-hour a day of light mark. And then they'll lay pretty consistently at that point. To give you an example, I've got an external light on one of my hutches that comes on at 7 o'clock in the morning and goes off. Well, no, it comes on at like 4 o'clock in the morning, I think it is. Goes off at like 7 o'clock in the morning. So the sun's already up by that time, and that extends the daylight. And those birds are laying eggs almost every day. I get an egg, a bird. Yeah, an egg per bird out of those birds. But my other hutch, I don't have external lighting on. And, some days I get a couple of eggs. Some days I get none. Sometimes they'll go 3 or 4 days without laying an egg. It's just the beginning of the season for them. They're relying on natural daylight. And because the days are not super long yet, they're just not laying real well yet. So give them some time. Wait for the days to get a little longer. If you want to speed it up a little bit, put an external light on there. Something that's going to light up just bright enough to read by. It doesn't have to be super bright. Extend that daylight out a little bit to 14 hours a day. Give them about a week, and they should start laying pretty consistently at that point. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that resolves that issue for you. I would also say, don't panic. Don't start moving them around to different hutches or anything like that, because that'll stress them out. When they stress out, they stop laying at that point as well. All right. Gina says, hello, Chris. My 2 does finally had babies. Well, congratulations. I'm glad to hear that. Sillamore says, hey, Chris, and all from North Central Arkansas. Hope everyone is doing okay. Well, we are here. Hopefully you are too. North Central Arkansas. That's probably, that could be close to me. Depends on what part of Arkansas exactly. Probably a little bit further away if you're Central Arkansas, though. All right. Lisa says, hey, Chris, good to see you. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. Good to see you too. Ed Got Bates says, watch John Katernick's Corner after the live. Oh, you saw the Katernick's Corner live that I was on. Yeah, well, thanks for watching that. I appreciate that. I'm going to try to get back on there again soon. I don't want to announce anything yet, but, I'll let you know whenever it gets closer if it's going to happen. So, all right, Jupiter says, hey, Chris, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you too, Jupiter. Thanks for joining. Rhonda says, I do have a question about quail. I've been hatching our quail, and so far, no matter how many eggs I have, the most I hatch is 15. I've sprayed the eggs with Listerine. I'm not sure what the problem is. Boy, there could be a number of different things there. First of all, are you sure you're getting fertile eggs out of your birds? Probably are. It seems odd that you would get 15 out of every hatch, no matter how many you set down. But, there could be a fertility issue there. You may not have fertile eggs. It is pretty early in the season. So even though your birds have started laying eggs and your roosters have started crowing, that doesn't necessarily mean there's enough breeding going on to make sure your fertility is really good. So that may be part of the issue right there. Have you checked your incubator, calibrated your incubator with a couple of thermometers? There may be some hot or cold spots in your incubator itself. That's another thing to kind of look for there, because especially if it's not a forced air, it doesn't have a fan in it. If it's a still air incubator, there's a good chance that you're going to have some spots in the incubator that are right on temperature. Some spots are a little too warm and some spots are a little too cold. So you might move the thermometers around a little bit and check for that. Oh, hang on a second. Got a text. Let's see who it is. It's work and it's not important right this minute, so we can deal with that later. It's important. It's just not important for me right at this moment. Where were we going with that? So, I would check the incubator itself with a couple of thermometers. Make sure they're calibrated and accurate before you do it, and see if that's the case with that. Without knowing much else, it's hard for me to say. How are you storing the eggs? That's another thing that could make a difference. If you're just putting them like out on a counter and it's getting too warm or too cold, that could cause problems with your hatchability. There's just a couple of things there to go through. I don't know exactly which one it is, but hopefully one of those gives you an idea of something to check. Grab a drink. How's the audio coming through tonight, guys? Is it too loud, too quiet, just right? I'll give people a couple of minutes to respond. I feel like I'm yelling, but I want to make sure that we're coming through loud enough for everybody to hear me. All right. Jurassic Gardener, howdy, folks from Houston, Texas. Hello to you. Thanks for joining. And Ramen, I think it is. Hopefully I got that right this time. Says, hey, Chris, good evening. Too glad you set schedule ahead of time. Hope your wife is doing well, and congrats on your 70,000 subs. Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. We hit 70,000 subs. I should probably do some kind of big giveaway. I'll see if I can find something to give away. And yes, my wife is doing well right now. Thank you very much for your concern there too. J. Cole says, a question after most of the eggs have hatched. You guys must have watched, that's the second one that put a Q before the question. And that's what I noticed on when I was on Katernick's Corner the other night. Let's see, it was night before last. Live on his, he asked everybody when they put a question in there to put a Q before it so he could identify the questions. And I'm seeing that popping up in the video. So that's actually pretty helpful. I should have thought of that myself, but I try to read every one of the comments, so you don't have to do that. It's okay. But all right. Let's see. J. Cole says, after most of the eggs have hatched and there are those few stragglers still to pip, how long do you wait before you give up on them to hatch? Good question. That's a tough one because, your inclination is to get in there and help them out of the egg, and that usually doesn't do very well. It doesn't work out very well most of the time. But then again, on the other hand, if they take too long to hatch, a lot of times they've burnt all their energy and they just don't survive whenever they do actually hatch, or you end up with like splayed legs or something like that. I usually will give them at least a couple of days before I count them as out. Usually 2 to 3, somewhere right around in there. And then at that point, I'm going to assume that they're probably not going to hatch or not going to survive at that point. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea. All right, Rhonda says the most eggs I've had is 63 and only had 13 hatched. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Rhonda. Well, I gave you a couple of pointers there, something you can kind of look for. Hopefully one of those fixes it. Let's see if anybody's commented on my volume. Somebody says, good, sounds great. Okay, good. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate that. All right, one is that Evis. Says, hey, Chris, always appreciate your input. Just had a new litter of 7 kits to a first-time mom. So happy. Been following your advice. We've heard we should be trimming nails on our rabbits? Is it necessary? Any suggestions and how often? I don't find it necessary at all. I never trim the nails on my rabbits. The only time I would ever really mess with that is if I noticed a problem of some kind, like they started getting it tangled in the cage or they were excessively long or something like that. It's not necessarily a terrible idea, though, if you want to handle your rabbits a lot, because those nails can be pretty brutal. They can, well, I don't have any scratches right now because I haven't handled them, but they can scratch your arms up. You go to pick them up and they start kicking those back feet. So if you want to clip them, go ahead and do it. And if you're going to do that on a regular basis, probably once a month, something like that. I never trim my rabbit's nails, though. It's not something you absolutely have to do. I mean, every once in a while you may run into one that has some kind of problem with it, their foot, their nails, or something like that may require it, but it's never really been an issue for me. All right. Jupiter's got a tip, I think. Jupiter says, hi, Rhonda. Glad to see you. I have struggles incubating this time of year when the outside temp is fluctuating. Maybe that's what's going on with your hatch. That's a good suggestion, Jupiter. Another thing I will mention to you, Rhonda, because Jupiter just kind of triggered my memory here, is what was I going to say? Oh, make sure you don't have your incubator sitting in like a window, an open window, or even just a window that has the blinds open where the sun's going to come through at certain parts of the day. I had some really bad hatch rates for a while, and then I finally realized I had it sitting over here. I look over to the side like you guys can see it, but I had it sitting over here. There's a window right here next to me, and I had the blinds open on the window. So in the afternoon when the sun was passing across, it would shine through that window and hit that incubator, and it was heating it up. Now, as soon as I closed my blinds, provided shade for that incubator, so it was a little bit more of a stable environment for it, my hatch rates went right back up. So that may be something else to check. Thank you, Jupiter. That was a good reminder for me too. All right, Sillamore says, I'm in Mountain View. Let's see, I know roughly where Mountain View is, but not exactly. I think it's a little ways away from me, though. All right, Elizabeth says, why would my mother rabbit eat her live baby? There's a number of different, well, there's not really a, that's most common, I should say, with first-time moms, and especially, it happens with all animals. It's not just rabbits that do that, but occasionally first-time moms get over-anxious when they're trying to clean up their babies, and they just don't know where to stop, so they end up eating the baby. It can be a survival instinct, like if they feel threatened a lot of the times. It's pretty rare, actually, for rabbits to do that. If you said eat her live baby, which made me think it was only one baby that she ate. So it's probably just a first-time mom thing. She got the hang of it after that, and everything was fine. The other thing I would say is, are you sure she ate it? Now, I'm assuming you know that, but a lot of times what will happen is you'll see a rabbit will disappear for whatever reason, and we just assume the mother ate the baby. But it could be something else. If you have a rat problem, rats will get in there and they'll take baby rabbits. If you don't have a good baby saver wire around the bottom of your cage, it's very possible that a baby born on the cage floor will squirm their way out of the cage, and fall out of the cage onto the ground, and then they're fair game for anything that's walking by to pick them up and take off with them. So there's a couple of things there. If it's a continuing problem, I've heard of people putting things like put a piece of bacon in there with the rabbit whenever she's getting ready to have her babies. And those are probably good suggestions. But me personally, if it's something that happened more than once, more than one litter, I would get rid of that rabbit, get a new rabbit. That's just a mothering trait that I don't want to have to deal with. That's just the way I would personally handle it. Hopefully that helps out a little bit, puts you at ease. If it was just one baby, the rest of them were fine, and it was her first litter, I wouldn't worry about it too much. See how she does on future litters. She's probably not going to do it again. It's probably not going to be a big deal. All right. Renee says, let's see, I scrolled. Sorry. Renee says, my doe rabbit just had her babies today. She had 8, but 5 died. She's a good mama, but babies were malformed. Huh, that's interesting. She had her babies today. She had 8, but 5 died. So I'm assuming this is not a first-time mom. Is this by chance an older mom? Like maybe she's 4 or 5 years old, somewhere right around in there. And if that's the case, it may be a sign that she's just about done breeding, and you need to probably retire her and look for a new rabbit at that point. It's odd. It's not that unusual for rabbits to have a malformed baby or 2, but 5 of them, that's a little bit odd. It's a little bit unusual. You weren't breeding a brother and sister together, I'm assuming. That can cause problems with malformed babies and things like that. Sometimes there's just a fluke for whatever reason, though. So if it's a one-time thing that's only happened, she's not terribly old, give her another chance. It's probably not going to be a continuing issue. It could be that she just has some kind of, gene in her that causes that. There's a lot of different factors there that could go into that. So, but again, if it's not, I'm assuming she's not a first-time mom. You said she's a good mama, so that makes me think that she's had multiple litters before. Again, if she's not super old, if this is the only time it's ever happened, no, I wouldn't worry about it. Chalk it up to just a bad litter for whatever reason, and see how she does on the next one. All right. Katrina says, hello, random question. Could quail eat passion fruit? Also, do you see any issue with using the same source bucket for an auto waterer for rabbits and for chickens? Any additives you can add or one can have that the other can't? Boy, that's a good couple of questions there. As far as passion fruit goes, I don't know. Something makes me think that being in the citrus category, it may be something you want to be careful of, but I really don't know about passion fruit. It's not something that we have around here. I'm sure you can buy it at the stores, but I really dislike the stuff, so I never buy it. So I don't know, honestly, if that's safe for quail to eat or not. I would say probably in small amounts, it's probably okay. I'm sorry, I can't answer that part of the question. I just don't know. I don't see any issues with using the same bucket for your rabbits and for chickens. I don't see any problems with that. As far as additives that one can have, the other can't. I can't think of any right off the top of my head. But I typically don't add any additives to my water. If you're talking about additives, you're going to add it. They're usually going to be vitamin supplements. And I don't think none of those that I can think of, vitamins, A, B, C, thiamine, any of that kind of stuff. I don't think there would be any problems with one having those and the other one not. I can't think of any issues with that either. But again, you may want to do just a little bit further research on that. I'm sorry, I can't give you all the answers, but I just don't use additives in my water. I've never found it necessary, so I haven't really thought about that too much. All right, Ed Got Bait says, how many quail can I put in a 2 foot wide by 6 foot long, 3 feet? 3 feet, I'm assuming, is the height. Feet is in, 3 feet is closed in with sand, and the other 3 feet is open. Okay, so you can still follow that easily, 1 per square foot if you want to pack it. So 2 by 6, that's going to be 12 square feet. Is that right? Yeah, 12 square feet. So you could easily get away with 12 birds. Yeah, I'm thinking, make sure my math is right. I'm notoriously bad sometimes at doing math. So yeah, you could easily get away with 12 birds in that pen. You could probably push it up a little higher and get away with up to 16 or 17 if you wanted to, and it probably wouldn't be an issue at all for you. Even with the sand bath in there, they'll take turns with it. It's not going to be a problem at all. So you should be fine with that number. All right, Rhonda says, I did get a new incubator to see if that was the issue, and I still have issue, and it is forced air. Okay, so I don't know when that question came through. I gave another couple of suggestions there, making sure it's in a closed-in area. Yep, I see your response. It's not near a window, so I'm not sure, Rhonda. I wish I had a better answer for you. I think I'd start checking fertility if all those things are working right. Even if it is forced air, if you haven't done it already, get a couple of calibrated thermometers, throw them in there, run the incubator for a little while, and see what they read. Make sure it's not over like a heater vent or an air conditioner vent too. That's another thing to kind of check for. All right. Raman says, I've been feeding rabbits mainly hay and leafy greens. Been thinking of switching to pellets and hay as your recommendation, but pellets cost way much more. There's no problem if you want to feed your rabbits with leafy greens and hay, and that's what you want to do. That's perfectly all right. The only reason that I use pellets is it is an easier way for me to, first of all, to make sure that they get nutritionally what they need. But it's also, you're going to get much faster grow out rates with pellets than you are with greens and hay and that kind of stuff. But if your rabbits are doing fine on it right now and you want to stick with it because you don't want to spend the higher amount of money on pellets, there's nothing wrong with that. Keep doing it. I don't see any issue with that at all. Me personally, it's just easier for me to feed pellets and not worry about it. So that's just a personal taste for me. There is a really good book out there on feeding rabbits naturally if you're looking for that. I think it's called Beyond the Pellet. Trying to remember the guy that wrote that, Boyd Craven, maybe? I may be getting him mixed up with somebody else, but I think that's who it is. And it's a pretty good book if you're looking to feed your rabbits completely naturally. It's got all the details in there on what you need to do. All right. I was getting confused. I'm seeing all these just fine. Sounds good. Sounds good. I realize you guys are responding to my comment about how the audio is now. I already scrolled down and read those. All right. So Rhonda's storing your eggs in the basement where it's colder than the rest of the house. That doesn't sound terrible. I don't know how cold your basement gets, as long as it's not getting down to like, below 40 degrees in the mid 30s. It should be okay. All right. Erin says, how long do rabbits stay in labor? She has pulled her hair this morning, but no babies yet. It's a good question. I'm not sure exactly how long they'll stay in labor, but just because they pulled fur doesn't mean they're actually in labor at that time. What I usually notice is that most of my rabbits would either pull fur right after the babies were born, or I've had a few that would pull fur, like you said, in the morning, and then usually have their babies that night. And I've had one or two rabbits that their first litters, they pulled hair, and then it was a day or two later that they finally had their babies. So it's nothing to worry about. It's pretty normal. Some rabbits will pull the fur up to a week ahead of when they're going to have their actual babies. But most of the time, when they start pulling fur, it's usually going to be that day or the next day that they're going to be born. So I'd keep a pretty close eye on her over the next couple of days. And good luck. Hopefully it all goes well. All right, Michael says, is that Michael? Yeah. How much pen space do you need for a meat rabbit? Debating on getting some. I use, unless you're looking at giant rabbits like New Zealand, or not like New Zealand's, Flemish giants that get up to like 20 pounds or something like that. Most of your meat rabbits, New Zealand whites, Californias, you're talking 10 to 12 pound rabbits, somewhere right around in there. They do just fine in a 36 by 30 inch cage, 36 inches by 30 inches by 24 inches high. You need to make sure it's at least 24 inches high. They need room to be able to stand up on their hind legs, stretch out, those kinds of things. But that's plenty big enough. And that's even big enough for a mother with litters. Now, you could get away with smaller cages than that a little bit for your bucks if you wanted to. But I just build all my cages the same so that I can move them around if I need to, or any of that kind of stuff. And 36 inches by 30 inches is my standard cage size for all of my rabbits. Mothers with litters up to, I can keep them in there up to 8 weeks if I wanted to, up till the time they get to be 8 weeks old. I usually move them out when they're about 6.5 weeks old to their own cages. And I'll keep at least 3 or 4 in each cage, grow outs in each cage until they get up to processing size of about 5 pounds. Hopefully that answers that question for you. All right. Lee says, hey, Chris, I tried everything to stop my doe from biting the cage wire. Any suggestions? Second question here is the Caribbean. We have a volcano eruption. Will the ash cause the nest box tie with the kits? Boy, I don't know. I don't think it would be any more of a cause of concern than just, regular nest box. I've never been, well, I shouldn't say that. I do remember vaguely Mount St. Helens eruption, but I was pretty young. I was only 6 or 7 years old at the time, maybe 6. I think it was 1980. What was it? Anyway, so I was pretty young at the time. I vaguely remember that, but I didn't have rabbits at the time, so I can't tell you how it affects rabbits. Get a drink here, clear my throat. So I don't know that it's something that I would be overly concerned with. Keep an eye on them. You may have to clean their eyes out. I don't think it's going to be an issue with nest box eye, but it may definitely make up their eyes a little bit, may need to be cleaned out, which is different than nest box eye. Nest box eye is actually like an infection in the eyes. Anyway, the other part of that question, get your doe to stop biting the cage wire. Well, if you don't have something in there already for her to chew on, try to put something in there for her to chew on. You can use, tree branches. Just make sure it's like a non-toxic tree branch. Willow's fine. Oak, I want to say, is fine. Look it up. There's a list of trees that you don't want to give your rabbits, but most of them are going to be fine. Or, I use untreated ply or 2x4s. It's just a chunk of a 2x4 that's not treated, not pressure treated. And I throw that in the cage, give her something to chew on. That might help. Rabbits do need to chew a little bit because they're just like rodents in a way. They're not rodents, but they're very similar in a lot of ways where their teeth grow continuously and they need to chew on something to help keep their teeth worn down just a little bit. So that may be what she's doing, is just looking for something to chew on. And if you can give her an alternative, then that'll stop her hopefully from biting on the cage wall. The other thing you can do is, if she's got other things to chew on and she's still chewing on the cage wall, I would suggest like cayenne pepper sauce or something. Just wipe it on the cage walls. She won't chew on them very long. I guarantee it. New Mexico Dust Bunny says, I was finally able to catch you live again. I kept missing them, but I always enjoy them. I have really liked the new lights. It's very pleasant to the eye. Oh, my new setup here for the live broadcast. Yeah, it takes a little bit to set that up, and I can't leave it up all the time. So if I'm in a rush, I may not be able to get them up and going, but I'm trying to go a little extra further for you guys. I also got my actual camera. We're not shooting on the cell phone anymore. Again, I may have to do that. I was on Katernik's Corner Live the other night, and I just did not have time to set up the lights. My internet connection was giving me problems. So, I filmed that on the cell phone. We did that outside, but I'm trying to make it a little bit more appealing, I should say, in here. All right. New Mexico Dust Bunny says, oh, I just read that one. Sorry. All right. Rhonda says, I'm thinking it might be a fertility issue and early in the season as well, but I wanted to run it past you to see if you had any other suggestions. Thank you. No problem, Rhonda. Hopefully things work out. I'm sure it'll get better as the season goes on. All right. Hung Nien, I think it is, says, I'm not sure if I pronounced your name right or not. I probably got it wrong, but I tried. Says, hello, Chris. My doe is raising her litter really well this time around. She apparently had 6, but I must have missed one while digging around. That one ended up dying, and I found it a couple of days later. Yeah, that's happened from time to time. But, hey, I'm glad to hear that things are going better for you on this time around. But, yeah, it does happen sometimes where you're getting in there trying to count them all up and you miss them, and then one of them ends up dying for whatever reason. I'm sorry that happened, but, it's just part of raising rabbits, unfortunately. Hopefully the rest of them are doing very well. All right, Emily, sometimes the mother will bury it on the bottom of the nest box. Yep, that's a good point. It could very well happen. Elizabeth says she suffocated the others and then started eating the last baby. I watched her do it. Oh, okay. So this is where we're talking earlier about she ate one of the babies. She ate a live baby, and you say she suffocated the other ones. Okay. I guess my advice still pretty much stands. If she's a first-time mom, then you might give her another chance. It is a cause of concern in a sense that, it's poor mothering instincts, first of all. I can't say I've ever had that happen from any of my rabbits. I have had first-time moms that lost a litter or lost a couple of their babies, but not from suffocating them and eating them, anything like that. She just didn't know what to do yet. Most of the time, they're having them on the cage floor, and they end up, dying from exposure. But that is a bad sign. It's something to watch for. I'd try breeding her again, seeing how she does with the Nix litter. And if it doesn't do well, then I'd definitely look at getting a new rabbit and getting rid of her. Jay's got a good point there, Rhonda. Make sure your humidity is not too high. He says it's a big part of incubation. Try to keep 45 to 55% or 45 to 50% in the first 15 days and then raise it to 75 to 80% during lockdown. And you say she's okay, Elizabeth, I'm sorry. I'll get back to your comment here in just a second. That is a good point there, Jay. I don't think humidity is as important as temperature, but if your humidity is too high, that will definitely affect your hatch rate. If it's above, say, 80%, like in the 85% range, that's a little high, especially during the first part of incubation. And it can definitely cause your chicks to drown basically in the shell before they ever hatch. So that could be an issue too. All right. How are we doing on time here? All right. At half an hour. We're doing good. All right. Elizabeth says she's had litters before. Interesting. So she's always been a good mom, had litters before. And then all of a sudden with this one, she's just decided to suffocate him, started eating on one of them. Maybe there's something going on. My thought immediately goes to like some kind of predator pressure or something like that that's coming around. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes rabbits do weird things, and hopefully it's just never an issue before. Or never an issue again, I should say. I wish I had better advice for you, but that does sound odd that just all of a sudden she would act all neurotic like that. So again, my initial instinct goes to some kind of predator pressure. You might put something, a game cam out or something to see if there's something coming around pestering her that's causing her to be nervous and, to behave like that. All right. James says, hey, Chris from Northwest Florida. I have a hen with a protruding and sagging chest. Still seems healthy, eating, drinking, and laying this batch. It's a first-generation meat maker from JMF. Should I call? Any help? Thanks. You said a protruding and sagging chest. So that sounds like air bubbles or something like that stuck in the chest that can happen. I forget forget the name for that. It's probably more watery than it is air, but I forget the name for that. What is that called? Oh, somebody's going to know. They're going to get that out here in a minute. But anyway, you probably don't have to call if she's eating. If she seems pretty healthy and she's getting around just fine, I'd just keep an eye on her, see if it goes away or not. There is a name for that, and I'm forgetting what it's called and exactly how to treat it, though. All right, I'm sorry, James. It's hard for me to come up with the specifics on that one. I think somebody will probably comment below and tell you what it is, and then we'll know. I just drew a blank. I'm sorry. All right, Raymond says, can we get an update on the rabbits? Yeah, rabbits are doing fine. There's just not a whole lot going on with the rabbits right now. I've got the grow outs are getting real close to being able to be processed. I just got to find the time to do it. There's just not much going on. But I mean, it's coming into summertime, so I'm done breeding the rabbits for the season. Going to be moving into hatching quail. I thought about breeding one more time, but my doe's a little bit on the older side. Look at that. There's that's Lars, isn't it? Lars, yes. Thank you, Lars, with a 200 Danish crown, I think it is, super chat. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So anyway, again, I'm sorry, there's just not a whole lot going on with the rabbits right now. I'll do some rabbit videos out, though. I have a couple of topics that pretty interesting that I'm going to try to get covered here in videos in the next couple of weeks. All right. Evie says, hey, Chris, how are things going for you? How's your wife? Hope everything is going good. I'm near West Plains. Well, no, West Plains isn't, it's a little ways, but it's not that far from me. Yeah, they're doing well. Thank you very much. Thank you. My wife is doing well. Everything seems to be going pretty good. Lalo, I think it is. Lalo, maybe. Lalo, probably. Could a Coturnix quail go broody? Yeah, it's possible. It has happened before. It's just pretty rare, and they usually don't do a very good job of hatching out their own babies when they do go broody. Sometimes they'll quit before they ever hatch. Sometimes they'll end up hatching them out. It's just it varies. But yeah, it's possible for them to go broody. If you have one that you think is broody, give it a shot. Let us see how it does. Sage and Stone says, how long can you store quail eggs before incubating for the best rate of fertility? Usually about 7 days is about ideal. After that, your fertility, it's not really the fertility, but the viability of that egg ever hatching starts to drop a little bit at that point. And after about 10 days, it really starts to drop pretty dramatically day over day over day. So 7 days, though, is a pretty good round number that you can usually get pretty good hatch rates out of, have very little effect on your hatchability if you save them for about sorry, I got distracted by another work task or work text, but I think everything's okay. So again, 7 days. That's about the general rule. All right. Raman says, Chris, would it be a good idea to spray just a little water on meat rabbits in order to let them cool off during the summer? That's a good question. I wouldn't spray their water directly on the rabbits themselves, but if you live in a fairly arid climate, fairly dry climate, then you can spray it on their cage, surroundings, the hutch itself. And as it evaporates, it will help bring the temperature down just a little bit. But it's probably not a good idea to spray it directly on the rabbits themselves. You can add fans that will blow. You don't want to put it blowing directly on your rabbits, but put it to where it blows across the cage and gets the air circulating in there. And that can help a little bit with that too. Gina says, when should I move babies from the mom rabbit? Mom isn't nursing. Babies are eating hay and pellets, drinking water. They are 6 weeks old. Well, that's about the right time. You should be able to go ahead and move them at that point. Just because you don't see them nursing doesn't mean they aren't nursing. They probably are at certain times when you're just not around. But at 6 weeks old, they should be just about weaned. And if not weaned completely, they're perfect. It's time for them to be weaned. It's fine. You can go ahead and move them off the mom. You can go ahead and put them in their own cage. What I typically do whenever I move them off is try to move about half of them, give her two days or so, and then move the other half of them off. That gives her a chance to kind of slowly dry up and not just everything gone at one time. All right. Trevor says, and I will say, you don't really want to do it before 6 weeks. 6 weeks is right about the perfect time to go ahead and move those rabbits off. All right, Trevor says, do you worry about giving your rabbits and quail chlorine-free water? Thanks. I give them city water. We have plenty of chlorine in our city water, and they do just fine. It never bothers any of them. My dog drinks chlorinated water. They're all fine. I don't worry about it at all. Now, I'm sure that, because I do fill up the water buckets, and they're usually sitting for, several days before the water is completely gone, then a lot of that chlorine probably evaporates out of there before they drink all of it. But yeah, they're getting chlorinated water. They're fine. It's nothing to worry about. All right, Bob says, hey, Chris, have you ever figured out what your cost per egg is from hatch date 8 months ago? I paid $200 for feed for 13 jumbos, three roos, and 10 hens, and I got 1,685 eggs from them so far. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. From 8 months ago, huh? You paid $200. No, I don't think I've ever done the math to really figure out what my cost per egg is. That's interesting. I'd have to do that. So you're about 12 cents per egg, you said, factoring in water, play sand. It's about 14 cents an egg. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I don't think I've ever done that math. I should keep track of it for a while and do that. All right. Big Mike, good to see you, Big Mike. Jose says, is there really a big noticeable difference between a regular Coturnix quail versus a jumbo? Yeah, there is a noticeable difference between a standard bird and a jumbo bird. It doesn't sound like a lot when you talk about weight, because I think jumbo or standard birds are usually like 8 ounces, 9 ounces, somewhere right around in there, whereas a jumbo is going to be like 13 or more. But it is a noticeable difference. If you were looking at them side by side, you would have no problem telling them that's a jumbo, that's a standard. All right, Angelia, there we go, sorry, says hello from Mississippi. Hello to you, good to see you. Awesome Adventure says, thank you for inspiring me to have Coturnix quail. Well, thank you for watching the channel. I appreciate it. Cole says, hey, Chris, I have a question. I just started getting eggs from my Coturnix hens and my Coturnix roosters and have been crowing for weeks now. Do I need to wait before eating or hatching the eggs? No, there's no reason for you to wait. You can eat the first eggs that come out if you want to. There's nothing wrong with them. Let's do this. Says, how often do you change the sand in your quail pen? When it runs out. I clean it out periodically. Usually I try to do about once a month, once every month and a half or something like that. I have a screen. It's a little piece of window screen. It's about that wide, that long. And I just scoop the sand, sift it, throw the droppings out. But other than that, I don't actually replace the sand. It's probably once every year and a half or so before I don't really replace it. That's just about the time when they've kicked enough sand out where there's not enough left. And I end up go buying more and putting more in there. I don't actually take sand out and put in new sand at that point. Hopefully that makes sense. And Carlos says, can you sell your material on DVD? I never thought about that. I don't know how I would go about doing that. I don't know. Maybe it's something to think about, I guess. Terry says, what's the best meat quails? In my opinion, it's the jumbo meat makers or the jumbo pharaohs. I find those to be the absolute best for many reasons. First of all, they're jumbo birds. And as far as jumbo quail go, I haven't found any big difference between one kind of jumbo and another kind of jumbo as far as size. But I do find that my jumbo browns, which are the pharaohs and the meat makers, and honestly, I can't tell the difference between them. They seem to be the same bird to me. They seem to be more docile than the other birds, and I have less problems with aggression, them fighting with each other, any of those kinds of things than I do when I had other kinds of birds. So that's been my experience with them anyway. I highly recommend them. Excuse me. Brody says, question about quail. Started with 15 in the fall. I'm down to 7 now. I keep finding them dead and not sick beforehand. Might be breaking their necks from jumping. Any ideas what it could be? I mean, it could be, but that sounds unlikely. Now, I don't know how old these birds were when you got them. To me, it sounds like you've got some kind of illness, disease issue going on. If you're losing them that quick, you said from the fall, so I'm thinking that's probably been just a couple of months, probably 3 months ago at the most. And you've lost that many birds. That seems unusual to me. So you're finding them dead, not sick beforehand. They might be drunk. I mean, it's possible whenever, the birds flush and they flush up and they'll hit their head on top of the cage, especially if your cage is a little bit taller, they get a little bit more momentum going and they can break their necks that way or, get head injuries anyway or something like that. But it's unlikely. That's not really that common for it to happen. If your cage is, I would say, above 18 inches tall, and well, mine's about that. I don't have any problems. I don't think that's it. I would be concerned about some kind of disease, some kind of illness, poisoning, something like that going on. Without being able to see your actual environment, it's hard for me to know exactly what it is. You say you're not noticing any kind of sickness beforehand. So, I mean, there could be a parasite problem of some kind that you're just not noticing, and it's just too late. But if you're not seeing lethargic birds, like what I would expect to see if it was a disease or illness issue, is birds that are kind of lethargic. They're just sitting in a corner or whatever and just sitting there when you go out to the cage, maybe a day or two before they die. It doesn't take long. Once a bird gets sick from something, they can deteriorate really, really quickly, and just within a matter of a day or two, just slip away. And sometimes it's easy to not even notice that, I think. So that would be my concern. That's the things that I would start with looking for. You may end up having to get like a vet involved or something to see if they can identify what it is. Or, buy birds from maybe a different source next time. Sanitize your cages real well, replace everything in them, start all over again. That's the only things I can suggest. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I just don't know right offhand. All right. Carlos says, is it okay to breed a male and a female from different moms, but from the same dad? I mean, it's okay. I really don't like to breed brothers and sisters. If they're siblings at all, I don't like to breed them together. What you're talking about there are half siblings. So I would avoid breeding them myself, just for my personal taste. It just doesn't seem right to do that. But you're probably okay doing it. You're probably not going to run into too many issues with that unless you carry that on for several generations. Then you might start running into some problems. But if you're just breeding them out for meat rabbits or something like that, you're probably okay. All right, New Mexico Dust Bunny says, how warm is too warm to store unwashed fertilized chicken eggs? My chickens are crazy egg laying machines, and I quickly am loaded up. I don't wash till I'm going to use them. I think you're talking about for eating then. That's a good question. If you don't have any roosters around, eggs will actually store for a considerably long time, 75 degrees on the counter. If they're unwashed, they'll store for a good long time, several weeks anyway. If you have a rooster around and it's getting above 75 degrees, well, then you may end up starting to get your eggs to develop a little bit. And you've seen those where you crack an egg and there's a blood spot in the yolk. That's what's happened there. So it kind of depends on your situation there, but they're fine to store on the counter usually for several weeks, as long as you're not getting up above, I'd say above 80, 85 degrees. There's a good chance they're going to go bad a lot faster, but you should be fine. All right, Rhonda says, I'm doing good on rabbits between 3 does. We've got 26 baby bunnies. Wow, that is pretty good. Congratulations there. Rhonda says, would love to take a look into your new flooring. Yeah, there's not much to look at right now. I only got just a little piece of it done. So right now, most of my house is plywood floor, just the subfloor. So it's not much to look at. Stuff's all over the place because we have to move the furniture around to work on it. But yeah, maybe I'll give you guys a shot of it whenever I get it all done. I'm going to be doing this room too, so you'll see it in here as well. That may be a little while though. All right, Judy says, hello from Abilene, Texas. Had a great mixed Coturnix hatch. I have 2 chicks, yellow in color with a few light brown stripes. Can you tell me what color they will grow out to be? Well, all that yellow will probably turn white, but what you'll probably see is those brown stripes will get a little bit bigger. So you're probably going to end up with birds that are mostly brown with maybe some white, specks and some white stripes in them. They could be tuxedos. I noticed a lot of times tuxedos kind of look like that when they're young. So they'll be, maybe like a white chest with the brown backing and white under the wings and things like that. It's hard to say for sure. They can be tricky with trying to figure that out, but that more than likely, usually yellow turns white as they age. All right. Emily says, my California doe lost 4 out of 5 due to neglecting them, but I moved the 5th rabbit in with my silver fox doe. The California is still alive. Okay, so let me read that again. My California doe lost 4 out of 5 due to neglecting them. Sorry to hear that, first of all, but I moved the 5th rabbit in with my silver fox and okay. So when you say the California is still alive, you mean the baby that you moved in with the silver fox doe is still alive. Well, that's good. You got her to foster that baby for you. So glad to hear that worked out. Again, I don't know if your doe is a first-time mom, but you might give her another chance, see how she does on the next litter. That's one of those things. If they're losing whole litters from neglect and things like that, I don't give them any chances. If they're first-time moms, I might give them one more chance. But if it happens twice in a row, they're gone. I get another rabbit. I don't really put up with that too long. Life's a lot easier when you have good mother rabbits as opposed to ones that are difficult. All right. Michael says, just stop by to give you a thumbs up, brother. Well, thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate that. All right. Trevor says, I've had one of my does eat 2 of her babies, and now we just take her babies out to get fed and don't leave them with her. Probably not going to breed her much more. Yeah, you're talking about shelving your babies, basically. So what you're doing is you're taking the nest box inside, and then a couple of times a day, you take them out, let her feed them, and then you take them back away and you put them back in on a shelf in the house or something like that. And that's pretty common practice, actually. There's many reasons you could do that. That would be one of them. If she is, had an experienced or has a record, I should say, of eating her young or something like that, that's a good thing to do. I'm kind of with you. I would prefer to just get a rabbit that wouldn't do that myself. So I don't know that I'd breed her a whole lot more either, but sounds like you got a pretty good plan right now. So good thinking on that. Katrina, for the baby eating rabbit, something could be wrong with the baby and the mom may eat it. Other animals do this when the babies are not healthy. That's a good point, Katrina. That could be the case. Rhonda says, I don't have it the humidity above 65 ever, so that might be the issue. I normally have it between 50 and 65. And that sounds like about right on the humidity. All right, Elizabeth says she's been inside and she don't take care of her babies. She's had maybe 4 litters. She killed 2 litters and raised 2. Which one are we talking about again? I'm getting mixed up now. I'm sorry. Where was your other comment, Elizabeth? I got to look back at it to find out which conversation we're going with. She's had litters before. Okay, so got it. So you're saying that she's been inside and she doesn't take care of her babies. She's had maybe 4 litters. She killed 2 litters and raised 2. Yeah, I would say it's time to get rid of that rabbit. Get a new rabbit, one that's going to do much better. That would be my recommendation. All right, G. Michael says, hey, Chris, I hope you're doing well. Do you ever feed Max rabbit meat? Do you think it would be a good supplement for big breed dogs? Yeah, there's plenty of people that raise rabbits for the sole purpose of raw feeding their dogs. And I've given him bits and pieces, but I don't feed him regular rabbits. One of the things is, I don't want to, he's a house dog. He stays in the house a lot. So swift changes in diet are not a good idea, if you know what I mean. But anyway, he'd probably do fine on it. He eats all kinds of things anyway. I'm sure he'd like it just fine. I don't know if rabbit alone would be a good, constant feed for them. I think they probably need some other things as well. But it is definitely something that you can feed your dogs. It's not bad for them. It's going to be fine. All right. Right. Riyadh, I think it is, says hi from the Arab Emirates. Oh my goodness, I'm having a hard time with that. I'm sorry. Hello to you. Thanks for joining all the way from all the way around the world. Thanks for coming in and joining us for the live broadcast. Good to see you. Stabler says, remember, folks, chicken feed even up to 22% protein isn't enough for them to lay. So 22% protein isn't enough for chickens to lay? I would think they would still lay on 22% protein, but maybe I'm wrong. All right, Daniel says, cool rabbits with frozen water bottles. That's not a bad suggestion. Take like 2-liter bottles, fill them up with water, throw them in your freezer until they're frozen. Get several so you can switch them out, put them in your rabbit cage. That gives them something to kind of lean up against. Honestly, what I found with mine is they don't really use them. They never use the frozen water bottles, and it's so much work for me. I just don't mess with it. My best suggestion to keeping your rabbits cool in the summertime is keep them in a shaded area, and not just the shade of the hutch, but put the whole hutch in the shade. Like I've got mine on the south side of my house, so the sun never hits it directly. It's always in the shade of the house, and that helps a lot. And don't mess with them during the heat of the day. Just leave them alone. Let them lounge on the wire and try to cool off. Don't go around and get them all wound up, because when you go around the cages, they always jump up. They're at attention. They're seeing what's going on. Just leave them alone during the heat of the day. Try to get your chores done in the evening when it's cooler and in the morning when it's cooler. That's my best suggestion. They can handle the heat. It's definitely hard on them, but they can handle it. It's not as big of a deal as some people make it out. All right. Dylan says, can quail and chicken live together? I guess that depends on your chickens. Honestly, my experience with chickens is that they will try to eat just about anything that's much smaller than them, or significantly smaller than them. And quail are significantly smaller than chickens. So I would be worried about them getting trampled, getting picked on by the chickens. Maybe not. It may not be an issue. I haven't actually tried it, so I can't say. Now, there are some diseases that chickens can be carrier of that can affect quail pretty negatively. That's probably not a big concern, but it is a possibility. I think it's best to probably separate them out. But hey, give it a try. See how it works. You never know. All right, Emily says, I put a chicken fan in a window to cool down the rabbits. There you go. That's a good suggestion, too. Oh, there you go. Evis is, yeah, he says, is it pendulous crop? I'm not sure what pendulous crop is. He says, I don't know a remedy for it. But look at impacted crop. I think that's it. Let me do a search for you real quick and see if that's what I'm talking about. That's yeah, there we go. Impacted crop treatment. Says, lubricate the crop digestive tract with vegetable oil and an eyedropper through the mouth, and massaging the crop to try to break up the blockage, or in extreme cases, actually slitting the crop open with a scalpel. I don't think I'd suggest that part. But yeah, there's look that up. Impacted crop treatment. You're gonna have to look it up for chickens because I don't think anybody's gonna tell you how to deal with it with quail. But the treatment will be about the same for that. That's my guess is what that is. You're talking about the bird that had the chest was hanging down and was big. Look that up and see if the symptoms match it. And then if they do, then you can try to treat it that way. Owen says, I can't tell my jumbo quail apart. Yeah, I can't either. I mean, I don't know which bird's which. I can tell the males from the females, but I can't tell which. Like if I named one, there's no way for me to keep track. You could put leg bands on them if you want to, if you're really concerned about keeping them, separate. I'm not, so I just don't worry about it. All right, Sillamore says, I've always just given my quail plain old dirt to bathe in, and they love it. Never have given mine sand, and they don't seem to care. No, they won't care. If you can keep your dirt from getting compacted, it's going to stay loose. They'll love that just fine. There's no reason not to use that. I just find it easier to get sand because if I was going to go dig up dirt, well, if you think you're going to dig up dirt around here to give your quail, you obviously don't live in Southwest Missouri because you're not digging very far before you start hitting rocks. I always watch those movies where, they're digging a grave or something, and they're like a couple of hours, two guys with a shovel, and they got a 6-foot hole in the ground. I'm like, man, that's like weeks of work around here. There's no way you're digging a 6-foot hole with a shovel. It's just not going to happen. So anyway, I digress. You get my point. There's nothing wrong with dirt. Use dirt if you want to. It's fine. The quail will love it. You can even use things like wood ash and stuff like that. They'll do fine with that too. All right, Lee Davis says, hi, Chris, my quail have started laying. My 4-week-old is so happy. Awesome. Glad to hear that. Dixon Dropping Rock Dairy says, any news on when your new lights will be ready? Man, I'm hoping they'll be here soon. They should be any time now. I've still got, if you guys are one of those that prepaid for the lights whenever I had that opportunity to do that, I've still got all that money saved away. So if something happens and we don't get them, whatever, I can refund your money. Don't worry. But I don't have an update yet on when they're going to get here and when I can get them out to you. Hopefully anytime now. All right. Carlos says, thanks for answering my question. No problem. Carlos says, I think many people would like to buy a hard copy of your material in case the grid goes down. Well, that's a thought. I guess it could happen. All right. Lee Davis says, one of my quail has swollen red eyes. I've been treating her with diatomaceous earth. What else can I do? I wouldn't treat her with diatomaceous earth. That's not a good treatment for a swollen red eye. In fact, that could be what's causing the swollen red eye. That's a bad idea, actually. Swollen red eyes. Excuse me. I feel like I'm losing my voice here. I've been straining it or something. Swollen red eyes make me think, it could be any number of things. Probably she's just getting picked on or had gotten picked on. And if you're rubbing diatomaceous earth on her eyes to try to treat that, I mean, that's just going to irritate it. That's like rubbing sand in your eyes and wondering why they're red. I mean, that sounds hateful. I don't mean it that way towards you. It's just, that's not a good treatment. Don't use that. What you should do is probably just flush her eye out. Make sure you get all that stuff out of there, clean it out real good, and then just leave her be for a little while and see how well it heals. If it's a continued issue, if they're like swollen, red, and they're like that for a long period of time, chances are what happened is she got picked on. Probably other birds pecked at her eyes, and that caused them to swell up and turn red. Most of the time, what I find is if I just leave the birds alone, it goes away. A week, something like that. It's healed up. They're fine. If it's a continuing issue after that, there are some, illnesses and things like that that can cause that. If she doesn't have any other symptoms, it's like I said, it's probably just an injury from the other birds. Right now, this time of year, we're starting to get into, the summertime. The birds are starting to become sexually active again, where they're going to start breeding, laying eggs, all those kinds of things. Hormones are starting to run through, and you're going to see aggression start to pick up just a little bit. So it's not an uncommon issue to have, but I wouldn't be rubbing diatomaceous earth in her eyes, that's for sure. All right, Brody says also the hutch I have for them. Hutch we have for what? I'm sorry, Brody, I've forgotten already. Oh, the quail that were hatched that summer. The person I got them from has no issues with theirs. Is there a way I can continue some pictures of their setup? What are we talking about again? I'm sorry, Brody, I'm lost. I answered too many comments between now and then. You can try to send me some pictures if you want to. Through probably email would be the best way to do that. I'm notoriously bad about email and very slow to respond to it sometimes. But if you want to send me a couple of pictures, go ahead. It's Chris@slightlyrednecked.com. And I'll see what I can do to get to taking a look at them. I don't remind me when you send the email, tell me what it is you're asking me about, because I won't remember. I get too many inquiries, too many people hitting me up all the time, and I get mixed up and get lost with who was saying what. So I'll need to know, what it is you're asking me, and I'll try to get a response back to you. But he says also the hutch I have for them, I had made, it was 1/4 inch mesh wire on the bottom, which doesn't seem like it's big enough in the holes for the droppings, so I have to clean the wire weekly. Yeah, 1/4 inch is not really big enough. You want 1/2 inch. But that's okay. I mean, that's easy enough to fix. All right. Sillamore says, I think you ordered eggs from me. I'm Glasgow's Goods on Amazon. Talking to Judy Reynolds, huh? I missed it. I'm not sure where that... Anyway. Emily says, my doe is a first-time mom. Well, good luck. I hope that she does well. Jupiter says, Chris, if you ever start selling your merch, you should put that on a t-shirt. Life's a lot easier when you have a good mother rabbit. I shouldn't I? I should write that one down. That's, let me think about that. Who knows? I've had a couple of people request that I put something together. Maybe I'll start up like a Teespring account, like a print-on-demand t-shirt service or something like that, where, give you guys options to buy some t-shirts with, probably won't be that clever as sayings, but things that I think are clever on them, maybe. Who knows? All right, Kelly Fadua says, can you have a male rabbit next to the female rabbit, stress her out, and make her not take care of her babies? I guess you could, but I don't think that's a very likely scenario. I do put up a barrier between my male rabbits and my female rabbits because there's a good chance. First of all, male rabbits can get pretty nasty, and they'll pee on things, and don't want them peeing on your other rabbits. The other thing is there is a chance they can breathe through the wire as well. So I just take a piece of aluminum flashing is what it is, and just put it right between the cage so they can't see each other, and it solved all those issues. It is possible that could stress her out and make her not want to take care of her babies. That's definitely something that you can try to fix and see if that fixes any issues you have. Arthur says, hello, Chris. I had to get rid of my whole quail operation yesterday. It was a great journey. Have a lot of thanks for all the guidance along the way. If I only knew how much poop they produced. Oh, they do produce a lot. That's for sure. It's a lot to keep up with. And if you're trying to keep them in-house or in an in-building or something and emptying trays, that's a lot of work. That's why I have mine out there. We're just letting them drop to the ground, deal with them that way. All right, Sujak. Anyway, I'm sorry you had to get rid of them, but you're absolutely welcome for all the guidance. Thank you for watching the videos either way, and hopefully things work out better for you with whatever it is you're going to do with your next venture. Sujak says, will you do an end-of-year comparison on your savings with your solar panels? My solar panels, I don't know. I may need to do something like that. I will tell you, My solar panels have worked out really, really well for me. I very seldom ever have an electric bill over $13. $13 is just the amount that I pay to be hooked up to the grid. So the grid's, the backbone. It's like the battery in a sense. I'm using it like a battery, and I pay $13 a month to be hooked up to that. I think over the whole year, I probably paid, let me think about that for a minute, $13 a month. So that's about, let's see, 130, another 2 months at 26. So $160 on my electric, plus probably, let's say, another $150. So probably we're looking at like $300 for the year on my electric bill. And let me break it down this way. Before I was on solar, I was at $160 a month for my electric. I had it on level payment plan, so it was the same every single month. Otherwise, it jumps in the winter or jumps in the summertime and then drops back down in the wintertime. So I put it on a level payment plan. I was paying $160 a month. I pay $113 a month on my solar panels for the loan to cover those, and $13 a month to be hooked up to the grid. So it's $126 versus $160. So I save approximately, what's the difference there? 126, that's going to be $34 a month, roughly. And so you take that over the course of a year, 340, 350. I probably end up saving about $200 over the course of the year on my electric cost by going with solar. And then, I'm getting close to getting those paid off. So once I have the solar panels paid off, then I won't have any solar panel bill anymore, and I'll just be on electric, $13 a month electric bill or something like that. So I know that was kind of crazy. Hopefully you could keep up with all that. But all right, where are we at here? How are we doing on time? Oh my goodness, we're out of time already. I'm so sorry, guys. We got to cut this one short. I'm going over. I got to go spend some time with the family. Oh, you're giving a tour in her dust bath. Okay, Lee, that makes me feel better. I thought, okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you out like that. I just misunderstood the diatomaceous earth in the eyes thing. I thought, oh my gosh, no wonder they're red and swollen. Give her some time. She'll probably be just fine. Anyway, I gotta end this one for the night. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. I hope everybody had a good time. I always enjoy hanging out with you guys. And hopefully we'll be back next week. I should get videos out this weekend. I don't know if I'll get 2 out like I usually do. I've got a lot of work to do on the flooring to get that done. But I'm going to do my best to try to sneak out and get a couple of videos shot for you guys, get them edited and get them posted up. So anyway, hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys for joining. And as always, God bless and good night.